Selmer Little Giant. Just look at this beauty. This is owned by the same guy that's got the Hagstrom that we're working on. This amp is near mint. These amps are quite rare and quite old. I think this is from the early 60s. Not sure on the date. One or two of you will probably know a bit more than me. And this amp is really, and it, apart from the, if I just sit this down, and you can see there, apart from a little bit of rust on the handle brackets there, this amp looks near mint. The guy bought it from new, bought it out of a catalogue in the 60s, early 60s, whenever he bought it. I'm going by the croc skin, it must be early 60s, because the first Selmer treble and basses were croc skin. So we're probably looking 63, something like that, 64 for this. The grill cloth is immaculate, just like it's new. There's not a mark on it. So this amp is in fabulous condition. It's been stood for a lot of years. And we're going to get this running. The guy wants to get it up and running. So we need to get the chassis out and recap it and stuff. I don't know if it actually works. The back's been off it, because I'm just using that to prop it up. It makes it easier for the camera to see it. The back's been off because we've got these screws in here, so I don't know who's put these in, so we need to find some screws so it looks period correct, and it's been put on upside down when it's been replaced. It's got a serial number there. So we need to take this back off and have a look inside. These are really modern. These screws, yeah, the screws, not bolts. These are really modern screws, and they've not even gone all the way into the wood either, which is good really, because it's not actually marked the hardboard. So that's good news. So we'll try and find some screws that look a little better than that. So we've got an EZ80 in here. Let me try and get this board. Let's see if we can loosen that off. By gum, that's tight. It is. I was hoping we could drop that. Oh, it's gone down, because it'll help to get more light in. Let's just turn this light, get this light a bit closer that we've got here, so we can see inside there. Let's just drop the camera height. Right, so we can see inside now. We can have a look at what we've got in here. So we've got a Brymer EZ80, we've got a Brymer EL84, we've got a Mullard yellow print ECC83. We've just got one 3232 capacitor there. I think, I'm just looking to see, that'll be the cathode resistor we can see hiding down there. Every time I start filming, Henchman Dregs comes and starts drinking his water. Have you finished, Henchman Dregs? So we can see we've just got this little board on here. We've got the Weimar capacitors, which will probably be good. No, he hasn't finished. His water bottle is at the side of this bench. So we've got, as I say, this 3232 here. So it's to be hoped, really, that it's to be hoped that this runs okay. So it's all, it looks all original. I don't know whether the Brymers are original to this, or whether it had Mullards in originally, or whether it had a Brymer and someone's put that Mullard in, but I get the feeling that probably that's not the original tube. Actually, I need to get that on there as well. So we see we've got this speaker here, which is that 80. Oh, there's a past lodger. we can see there he's probably about 60 if he's been in it from new. The sides are made from ply, so that's good. So it's not like it's some kind of chipboard thing going on. And we've got these structures which look like mahogany. I don't know whether they are, but they look like it. Looks like mahogany, that. So it's a sturdy cabinet. There's the power transformer. Is that loose? And there's the output transformer there. Well, everything looks right on it. So I think what we'll do is we will plug this into the current limiter. Right, so let's get it plugged in. Plug it into here. Current limiter's on. There we go. Actually, before we plug it in, let's just check the plug, shall we? Make sure everything's good in there. It's had a modern plug put on it, so recently, by the look of it, that all looks okay to me. It's got the correct fuse in there. 3 amp, that's good enough for this. Everything's nice and tight, so that's good. Probably get away with less than 3 amp in there actually, and I don't think this is fused other than in the plug. So I actually do have some smaller plug fuses which I've got as low as 1 amp, so we may end up putting one of those in it. Right, now how do we switch it on? There we go. It's come on okay. What current are we drawing? 23 watts. And up it comes. Look at that. Drawing 150 milliamps. There's a little bit of noise off this capacitor, but to be fair, it's only 32 microfarad, so you will get, usually if they're lower than 47, there's a little bit of background noise, but that's not excessive particularly. That's amazing. That's just come on. There's no issues. It's frying a little. And the bulbs are a little warm, but there's no light, no glow in them. Well, that's so that's with the tone. Is that the tone? Yes, I think it is. Even the pots aren't that crackly really, and to be fair, it's not that grubby inside, is it really? A little hoover out and this will be back to looking brand new. This is a little bit of frying, but that's probably due to the tube sockets wanting cleaning. See if we can get a ground on anything. Let's get this meter. I'm going to check this coupling capacitor to see if there's any leakage on it. Only 73 volts on that side. Can we get? I don't think we can get to it. 158. Looks like that's going through there. Yeah, it is. 73. 73. Is that going to that 10k resistor? It will be, won't it? That seems okay. That's not leaking. 0.1 of a volt. It's just a little bit, just frying a little bit. That's probably the tube sockets, you know, just want to clean. What a sweet little thing it is. Just that when you turn the tone down fully down, but that could be just something in the circuit. And there is another coupling capacitor on that side. No leakage there either. Let's see. Actually, wouldn't be able to put the ground on. Let's have a look. No, that's not leaking either, so it doesn't need the coupling capacitors changing. Yeah, plenty good enough. In fact, to be honest, doesn't really need anything changing, does it? It's all original. I think all we need to do really with this is give it a hoover out and clean the tube sockets. I mean, it's got, as I say, there's a little bit of background noise, but it's a Class A amp. It's a single-ended Class A amp. You always get a little bit of hum in the background. We've only got 32 microfarad on there. We'd have to put 50 on there to get rid of that. That's quite acceptable for an amp of this age and this, you know, this size. Anybody who's got a Fender Champ knows it hums a bit. We could test the tubes as well, but there's really not much to this, is there, at all? It's a very simple design. I wonder what it sounds like. I think what we'll do, we'll switch off. We'll just keep it on the current limiter for a bit longer. I think what we'll do is let's take these tubes out and give them a clean. I think would be a good idea. Give these tube sockets a clean. Have we got any gumption? Yeah. There we go. That one might be a little too hot yet. Ouch, it is too hot. Best leave that for a minute. That's warm. We'll leave that to cool down. You know, this amp is split via mint. So I am reluctant to change anything on it that it doesn't really need. You know, yeah, there's a little background noise, as I've said, but we'd have that anyway. If this amp was brand new, it'd have that. With a 32 in there, you'd have that background noise. The coupling caps aren't leaking at all, and there's only 2 of them, so we really don't need to change those. The amp runs and sounds okay. Well, I'm hoping it sounds okay, but the amp runs okay. There's no issues there. So I think the best thing to do with this is just clean the sockets, give it a hoover out and put the back on it and plug it in and have a listen. Right, so I've tested the tubes and they're fine. I've cleaned the tube sockets. We've still got that bit of frying, and that's probably a plate resistor, or it's certainly a resistor. My money would be on the 100k there for that. I think the primer tubes are original and the mullards being changed. Yeah, that's getting worse now. That plate resistor. The guy didn't say if there was anything wrong with this amp, although I didn't speak to him, leave it at the shop. But I wonder if that's what the reason that he wants this looking at, is that he's getting quite noisy. But yeah, that is quite, and it has got steadily worse. Just sprayed some alcohol on it there. It's quite cold when it's not as good as freezer spray. And it is getting worse. Right, so what do we do? I've also noticed the pilot light is flickering occasionally, so maybe that could just do with a bit of a clean. Yeah, that's starting to get worse again now. So, I mean, it might not be that plate resistor, but it's a fair bet it is. Must have two plate resistors in this though, because we've got, this is a twin triode obviously, so I can't see the other one. We'll have to check the schematic and just see what. Yeah, that's getting really noisy now. Yeah, I'm sure you can hear that. Let's just pop, swing it round. Yeah, that's definitely a cooked breakfast. You just get this bit of humming when you turn this bass control down, but maybe that's just part of the design. Yeah, that's getting really so it looks like it needs some plate resistors just to quieten that off, get that quietened down a bit. Right, I think we'll have to take it out its case. I've just turned off the current limiter now and it's getting even worse still. Right, I've got this out, it's the chassis loose there. I don't want to disconnect these wires unless I'm forced. The less soldering the better on this amp. The plate resistors are 270k. That resistor that I was looking at is a dropping resistor. That's what you get speculating. I actually checked on the schematic, so we've got two 270k plate resistors, and they are a bit sick because one of them measures 50k over and I think the other one is around the same. So they have got to go, I'm afraid. We need to replace those. In fact, I'm actually struggling to get a reading off one of them. Whew. That one actually measures 399. That's even more than I thought on that one. And this one measures 321. So that's so wires on the camera. That's 51k over, and that's 51k over, and that's over 100k over. So we need to get those out. They are shot. In fact, all the resistors in this amp measure high in value, but I'm reluctant to change them all. That resistor there is 100k, it measures 111, so that's probably borderline, and I think we'll leave it. The 1 meg there, which is probably a grid leak, can't get a reading on that, is 1.13, so we can leave that one. There's a 10k there, that's the grid stopper to the output tube, I think that one. That measures 11.9k, so that's over 10%, but again it's only a grid stopper. I think we'll leave it. There's only 2 more resistors. Third resistor on this preamp tube, 2.6, is it going down? .6 that one, so that's 400 over, but again we'll probably leave it. There's 1 meg there. Got a feeling I think I'm grounding that on the side of the tube socket. I am. Can't get a reading off that one. Let's try it on the other side. Yep, that one's okay. So we've got a resistor down there for the, that's the cathode resistor. No cathode bypass capacitor on this amp. .153.9 ohms. Call that 154. It's probably 150k, 150 ohms. Sorry. There's some oil on the board. Probably see. We just over there. You can see there's a bit of oil and stuff on the board. The dreaded oil again, but there's not a lot, and we can wipe that off. So we'll clean that off, and then we'll change those 270k resistors, and then I think we'll put this back together. Right, we've got the plate resistors in. I've got it all back together, and I've also changed these screws. If you remember, we had these things in there, and I'm guessing that it was something this size that was actually in there, and luckily there's just enough bite at the bottom of the hole for those to tighten up, and they look much more period correct. I mean, they look new, but then the amp looks new. Right, I've got this Selmer back together, and it's not great news really. So the first problem is this. That's DC leaking onto the jack socket, so that's leaking off the grid of the tube. That first stage is grid biased. The cathode to that first stage is wired straight to ground. There's a capacitor on there, 2.2 nanofarad, and I changed that because I actually set this up to run it earlier, and so I thought, oh, that must be leaking, so changed it. Still the same, and I've got a feeling it's how it's wired on there is not quite right. It's something to do with the traces joined together, so it's kind of bypassing the capacitor out. So that's the first thing. The volume doesn't cut the sound off either to ground. that issue that we had when we turned the tone down to 0 with the humming, that you don't get that with the jack socket in it. The tone really doesn't work at all when the amp's turned down low. The amp's very, you can hear it's very rough sounding. One of the reasons is it's got 100 nanofarad coupling caps in it, which is obviously is going to make this amp a bit farty. I've actually looked at the schematic for this. So now if I crank this amp up, it sounds very muddy. If I back off the volume, then the tone control is almost like a volume control, and it suddenly gets all its top end back. But listen to it now, because the volume's not on the stop. Some very strange things going on there. If you want a little bit more treble on it, you have to back off the volume on the guitar, and then it starts frying. So a few problems there with this amp. Now I wanted to try and leave this amp as original as I could, but that's beginning to look, for this amp to be anything like decent, that's now beginning to look a no-no. The guy who wants this amp to work, the guy that owns this is the same guy that owned the Vox AC30 that we did recently, and he wants to record with this amp as well. So Lee at the shops had a word with him, and he wants me to get this amp sounding good. He isn't going to sell it. He's not bothered about its originality inside or whatever. He just wants it to work. So I think what we're going to do with this amp now is look at improving it. We have got that ELAC speaker in there, so I think whatever we do is going to be limited. I don't really want to start changing the speaker. That's probably going a bit too far, but then again, we could put some kind of inline jack socket and plug on it where we could use it on a different cab maybe, but it's not really usable like that, and certainly not for recording. And you can see as I turn up the volume, when it's flat, when the volume's flat out on the stop, it's fine. You can hear it's frying away now. So there's some real issues there. Can't use that in a recording studio. And when the volume's full up, it's just muddy. I mean, they've let's just turn that down. They've tried to bias the first stage. They've biased it grid bias to try and get it to just be cleaner. Well, it's not really worked. So I'm going to finish this as part 1 now, and I know there'll be some people out there that think I should keep this amp as original as possible, but it isn't usable as it is, and the guy that owns it wants to use it, and basically he said if we can get this to sound better, and first of all I've got to get rid of some of the problems, not just get it to sound better. I have to think about what we're going to do with this amp now, and what ideas to come up with. We could leave it grid bias, and we could you know, solve that grid leak. I actually tested the cable, and there was 0.6 of a volt going onto there, just over half a volt. And what makes me think that cap capacitor isn't wired up properly is that I actually bypassed that. I actually decoupled that 0.6 of a volt using a capacitor at the end of the guitar lead and tested it, and I got rid of it. So there's obviously, however that's been wired in there, that's not working. You can clearly see the capacitor on the schematic, and it's on the first stage as you plug into the guitar onto the first grid, the grid 1. So it's obvious why it's been put there. It just isn't doing its job. I've changed that capacitor thinking it's leaking, and it's not leaking. So it's the way it's been wired, and we need to look at that. So that'll do it for this one, and I know we didn't get a really good demo out of that. It just sounds awful. There's no point me sitting here playing that how bad it sounds. So that's going to do it for this one. We'll have a think, look at it in part 2, and see what we can change to get this amp to sound a lot better. So thanks for watching. You all take care, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye for now.